Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Joseph Bryant Jr., the National Sports Director for Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition. It is an exciting time as I'm standing on the streets of Brooklyn, New York, right here in the Big Apple, in front of the historic Barclays Center, right here off of Flatbush and Atlantic. And there's some exciting things that are going on this property as we celebrate what the NBA has done another year. Of course, they just finished the championship run. Shout out to the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee took it home this year, and we're excited about that particular organization and all they've meant both on and off the court. But tonight is beginning another journey because we see the NBA draft is the starting point for these athletes to begin their lifelong dreams. But what we've come to discover as we continue to watch and observe how athletes use their platforms for the greater good, the beginning of a sports career is also the beginning of a career of life-changing experiences where athletes can use their platforms for the greater good. We wanted to be able to chronicle some stories from this past year where we have seen just that, athletes and activism, sports and social justice, changing the game for the good. That's what it's all about. Of course, we appreciate the NBA because they have always been on the front lines of change. And for these young players and their families, the journey begins with the draft.
My name is Jania Butler. I'm a Hall of Fame basketball player from Long Island University, 1993 to 97. Had 1,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, 10 for 10 game, 23rd in the nation, shooting percentage, 15th in the nation in rebounding. So I'm a little big girl, come from the school of Charles Barkley, and I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad the Rainbow Push is here with me in Brooklyn. When I got here, I remember when I was 17 years old, coming up on the campus, my parents being scared of letting me go, and there was none of this here. You know, this was just street, this was just a dream imagined right here. And so what you see is you see so many buildings and so many things that have been put over top of the legendary history here in Brooklyn. Because the LIU Blackbirds, they won the NIT back in the 70s, and this used to be the place. And now this is just the epicenter of everything economic and basically the house that all these people built for all these years. I actually won the state championship, the city championship with a team out of the Bronx. So what I did was it was the lowest performing school in the country, lowest zip codes in the country. And what happened was these girls weren't ready to play, right? So I had to take what I learned at LIU here in Brooklyn to the Bronx. So in 2008, 2009, I was the coach of the Lady Wings out of the Bronx. And so it was very interesting because these young girls came out of the Bronx, they were hardcore, and I told them, what is the difference about everybody else around the country, right? Who are you coming from New York? Who are you hailing out of New York? And those girls changed their lives around. Now a lot of them, one is a police officer, one is plays internationally. And so we won the city championship here in New York City, and it was a beautiful thing. And we were the first girls team that were losing. We were on ESPN because we were losing by the most points and came back and won by the most points to get our city championship in our semifinals. So teaching the next generation about what it is, what heart is, and let me just tell you a little story. When I first got there, she kicked the water bottle over, she kicked the water canister over and said, "I'm out the game," ran off the court. What are we doing? Where are we going with this? So what happened was, when we're in this championship game, she's hardcore, Aquilin, we're in the championship game, and her family was fighting in the stands. This is very key. Her family was fighting in the stands, and she's on the court. Her first instinct, run up the stands, get into the fight. We were losing. So she looked at me. Now, we had been through the whole season with this. So she looked at me. with the eye of the tiger, she looked at me and she said, I didn't say anything. I said, you know, I gotta let her grow. She looked at me, she wanted to run, she was, why does this have to be so hard? With tears in my eyes, Doc, I said, because this is what it takes, right? She went out there and had a game of all games, okay? She went out there, hit them threes. I was on the sideline crying. And that moment, I learned that our kids and what our kids need to be taught and shown the way. So I've been here on the streets of Brooklyn throughout. My family runs the West 4th Street basketball tournament, you know, so we've done that for years, the last 35 years. You know, that's going on. We've done barbecues and really uplifted the community to the next power here. Right. So basketball and New York are synonymous. And what I was able to tell those girls is what's different from you than the rest of the country. It's that you got the swag, you got everything, but you gotta play fundamental basketball. You gotta play by the rules. A lot of us don't make it coming out of Brooklyn here because of that swag, and we don't put it all together. But coming out of Brooklyn, coming out of the Bronx, coming out of New York, those girls did their thing. So that's some of the stuff that I've been able to do with basketball and just take it to the next level. You know, as far as working with Kenyon Martin, different celebrities, with the Big Three. We were able to bring the youth to the Big Three. We had something down at the Boys and Girls Club in Brooklyn where the Big Three came in, Kenyon Martin, a few other the Big Three players, and giving back to the kids. So I've been able to bring the world together. And once you get educated, you start knowing what to do and when to do it. And so we brought the kids and connected those dots, and that's what we're doing. Of course, and I've been working with you, you know, and you've been expanding this whole sports piece to the next level.
Hey everybody, we are still rocking it here right in Brooklyn, right in front of Barclays, and now right in front of the NBA Draft 2021 sign. We are here doing what we do, talking about sports and talking about the power of sports and how sports continues to transform lives. We've been talking about how this city, how Brooklyn itself, how the New York atmosphere continues to be such a rich place for basketball and for life-changing people who do life-changing work, like the very first female African-American coach for the NFL, rocking it with us tonight. Here she is, everybody, Coach Colette V. Smith. The V is for victory, among other things. Sis Colette, it's so good to see you here. We are glad to have this conversation with you. You are living a witness for us what it means to be somebody that uses your platform for the greater good. Talk a little bit about New York first and foremost, because this is where you are here. Really a New Yorker, true blue and through.
That's right. I'm a New Yorker, born and raised. I'm from Queens, but Brooklyn is where it's at. So to have sports and have the Barclays Center here for us, it feels like it's for us for the first time. And you can feel the pulse. The pulse, I'm getting goosebumps right now and I'm sweating. This is a big day for us. It's a big day for our people here in New York and the Big Apple. I'm taking a bite. I don't know about you.
We've been listening to the traffic. You know, we've been here, you know, filming and talking to people, you know, listening to Atlantic Ave and Flatbush and just being a part of the energy of the city. Talk about how that shaped you, you know, being a part of New York, being a New Yorker, and how that shaped your character to have the kind of tenacity and drive that you have that's put you in positions that you're in now.
Right, so being a New Yorker, and especially that coupled with sports, you know what? It's that fight to survive. It's that fight to live. It's that fight to defend yourself. It is that fight to love hard. And New York is definitely where it's at. So for me, it's made me a stronger woman, a stronger black woman, and I am very heavily involved with my New York people, my community.
Right.
Community is important.
Right.
And sports, like the great Nelson Mandela will tell you, sports is the great connector. Right, so I don't care where you're from, where you're at, we happen to be up here in New York, and sports is the great uniter, and that brings us together, and we're all about that life.
It's something because Reverend Jackson has always talked about leveling the playing field. He started talking about equal opportunity. When the playing field is even, you know, the rules are public, the referees are fair, you know, the goal is clear, we can all win. And when those kind of things happen, you know, doors can open as well. You have been the recipient of open doors, and now you're continuing to open doors. Talk a little about your journey into coaching, and then what you're doing now to give back as a woman of power.
So, you know, for me to have been born and raised a football head, I love football. And my favorite team was the New York Jets. So to be the first black woman to ever coach in the history of the National Football League, and to coach my favorite team, nonetheless, leveling the playing fields is where it's at. So it's not just about me. Yeah, I represent for me, but I represent every little black girl.
That's right.
Every little black boy. To give them hope and inspiration through my story of struggles, hard knocks, but their triumphs.
Right. And then tonight, these young men, obviously their lives are going to change. Their families' lives are going to change. What would be the message that you want to give them getting ready to take that big leap into, you know, not only pro sports, but what it means not only as an athlete, but as an advocate for who the people you represent?
Well, the beautiful thing about what's going to happen to transform these men's lives when they get drafted by an NBA team is that they're going to be able, here's what I pray for, to stay true to yourself. The NBA is a great proponent of these players using their voice.
That's right.
So I'm hoping and I'm praying to keep hope alive in our athletes and our men to use their voice to empower the next generation to give hope to the next.
There it is. This is Coach Colette V. Smith, y'all, and here we are at the draft, doing what we do, talking about not only sports, but the impact of sports, using your platform for the greater good. That's what it's all about, and tonight we're going to celebrate with these young men, and it's going to be a great experience for everyone. Hope you continue to enjoy our piece on changing the game for good, sports and social justice. Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Joseph Bryant Jr., National Sports Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. And we have been spending this year celebrating women in sports. We have had an entire year of truly giving women the appropriate honor, recognition, voice, value that they deserve. So oftentimes our male-dominated sports world takes up all of our time and attention, and we fail to realize the power of women, the ones that are involved in the sport on and off the field of play. And today, again, we're so grateful. The NBA has had the benefit of a 20-year journey of an amazing woman, and I'm grateful for the way she has supported and partnered with Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push over the years. Kathy Behrens, who is the president of social responsibility and player programs for the NBA, she is one that has truly been a champion in the sport. And as a woman, we just thank you so much for what you represent, and to all the young women that are coming up behind you, showing them a way to engage in sports in significance. Thank you, Kathy, for just being there, not only a presence, but an impact agent. You have been amazing. Thank you for taking the time with us today.
Well, that's very generous of you. Thank you, Dr. Bryant. It's great to be with you. It's great to partner with Rainbow Push. It's great to consider Reverend Jackson a friend and a partner on this work. So thank you. I appreciate all those nice words. Thank you so much.
We have received so many inquiries over the past couple of years as, you know, voices have been used to continue to push the issues of equality. A lot of people know that we have supported the WNBA publicly and consistently. We do a lot of work around women's youth sports. And so this has been a really good year and a half for us to do even more to celebrate women in sports. How do you think about your role and your place as a woman in the male-dominated world of the NBA and in NBA executive positions? How does that sit with you? How do you see your place as a beacon, as a light, as a trailblazer? How do you internalize that as you kind of navigate your role and think about the impact that you have?
Yeah, I will say I don't think about it all that much because, you know, I'm not alone. I've been at the league office for 20 years. When I got to the NBA, we had 4 years earlier, launched the WNBA. So I was surrounded by both the fantastic on-court women from the WNBA, but also at the league office, whether it was Val Ackerman, who was the original president of the WNBA, still a friend and colleague, now the Big East commissioner. But always at the league office, there were David Stern, Adam Silver, fully supporting and believing in the opportunities for women to play, not only again play on the court, but to play in senior levels at the league office with our teams. So I never felt like I was having to blaze a trail, because there were others who blazed it before me, and I was kind of following in their footsteps. But I recognize that one of the things that, when you think about the world of sports, I think we have started to create so many different opportunities. And so I love that now you have women who are coaching in the NBA, former WNBA players, whether it's Becky Hammon, Ednisha Curry, just joining Chauncey Billups' staff in Portland. Thrilled about that. So it's all levels. I think that's one of the things I've really enjoyed watching the last couple of years, is that it's now more women having an opportunity on the basketball side. So many of my colleagues, Allison Feaster, another woman I would highlight, who I think could probably be the first female GM in our league. She's a senior executive now at the Boston Celtics. Becky Bonner, another one with the Orlando Magic. So all sorts of different roles. Obviously, people know about St. Marshall at the Dallas Mavericks. So it's business, it's basketball, it's the league office, it's with our teams, it's with our partners. There's no trailblazing that I've done. I've really been fortunate enough to work with so many fantastic women, but to also make sure that the men who run our league, and they do, our commissioners have always been men, but they make sure that there's room at the table. And that the voices of many diverse candidates and diverse people are heard at every level of our business. And so that makes it more fun, makes it more challenging, but it certainly makes it more satisfying to know that's, we're surrounded by, I think, the best and brightest, and everybody's got an opportunity.
Thank you for mentioning all those amazing women that have these fantastic roles in the league. And one of the things, and I appreciate your humility, even as you view your own role. You've had such a great career and a great impact. And because you're involved in sports, I would love for you to share just a little bit about how you view the other sports. The NBA, as you mentioned, has done a pretty good job, relatively speaking. They've always been on the front lines of social justice issues, always been on the front lines of inclusion, very proactive in allowing voices to be heard and value to be assessed. But that doesn't happen in every sport, nor does it happen across the boards in terms of equal pay or equal opportunities for sponsorships or equal support. What are your thoughts about how we can do more as a society, as fans, even for Rainbow Push, as an advocacy group? What can we do to make sure that the needle is being moved more consistently, so that there can be more opportunities and more doors open for women to be involved in sports?
It's a great question, Dr. Brian. I like the way you framed it as, it's not just the lane of sports. When you think about the sports world, we touch every industry, truthfully, are talked about, that we're not afraid to have difficult conversations, whether those are conversations around race or those are conversations around gender equity. I think it's incredibly important that we expect more, we sort of have an expectation that it's not, it's not isolated, that women are leading organizations or women are playing sports or, serving as CEOs or serving as the Speaker of the House or serving as the Vice President of the United States. I mean, the fact that Vice President Harris is the first woman vice president is sort of like, on the one hand, amazing and fantastic, and we love her, and have been able to work with her on a lot of projects over the years. But it's disappointing that it took so long, and so it's just sort of not settling and not believing that, oh well, now we've got one. That's good enough. You know, we've got to have many more. When you look at the list of Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 CEOs, there have to be more. There have to be more women of color. There have to be more men of color. There have to be more people of diverse backgrounds in those roles. And we have to continue to, I think, call that out and have that expectation. And then create opportunities along the way. You don't just wake up one morning and get to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Somebody's got to give you that chance along the way to grow and to thrive and to make an impact. So I just want to see more of that in every level of our society, in every level of our society.
And you talk about the path to get there. You know, you don't, you know, kind of show up at the door of day one and say, I want to be the GM of a team. There is a path. There are roles. There are open doors that have to be made. As president of social responsibility, you know, how do you think about making opportunities real, ongoing? And this is partly out of a conversation I had with the sports media folks that we've interviewed recently, and they talked about, you know, just getting women more involved in journalism and getting beat writers, and you know, so those open doors at entry levels, you know, talk a little bit about how important that is. And you can see this as an executive, truthfully, just opening the door for someone to start the process so they can get to that place where we do celebrate the Cynthia Marshalls of the world, or owner Valerie in Milwaukee. Shout out to Valerie in Milwaukee, who's also part of the Rainbow Push family. How, you know, we need to continue to open those doors. Talk about how you view opening the door so this process can begin.
Well, I'll talk about it as it relates to why we felt it was so important when we started the MBA Foundation, that we had that as the mission, because there are, because we have to do that. We have to be intentional about creating those opportunities and about building the pipeline and helping people, especially young people of color, develop those skills and have access to those opportunities. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, it's a nice, there's no a full-time role, but there's an internship. Well, you have to pay people if you want to create diversity in your internship pool. You have to create opportunities for people who aren't so-called connected. And so you've got to make sure that that you're being, we talk about this all the time. We have to be intentional about this work. Diversity and inclusion, as important as it is, you can't just say, oh yeah, everybody wants to work at the NBA. Wouldn't that be great? Of course everybody does. But if you don't find and create opportunities, it's one of the things we're working so much more closely with our partners in the HBCU community. In the last year, we used our All-Star game last year to highlight, elevate, and tell those stories, but also to create opportunities. We have a long-standing partnership with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. So you just have to be intentional. You can't just sort of say, oh, well, everybody wants to work here, so we'll get the best and the brightest. You've got to find the best and the brightest, because they don't always get access to those opportunities. And if you're not creating that access, and if you're not encouraging that access, and if you're not giving people the skills they need to then be successful when they have it, that's the thing our foundation is really working on. I think that, to me, is critical. You can't just expect it. You've got to be intentional, and you've got to be really focused on that work. Super important.
Reverend Jackson often says that it's not a talent deficit, it's an opportunity deficit. You know,
leave it to him to say it better than I just did.
and because of that, you know, I think, you know, as we wrap up this segment, you know, I have a daughter that I'm so proud of, and I'm thankful for the opportunities I've been able to afford to her. And one of the things that we've done with a lot of our families that we work with, you know, sports families and pro athletes and executives, working with, you know, their daughters and one of the things I always want to do is to have women speak into their lives. You know, that even in sports and oftentimes entertainment and other industries where the male dominance is so prevalent, that, you know, sometimes it's not just the access to it is a huge piece, but to hear from someone like Kathy Behrens, who can say, you know, you can do this. Give the either the younger you or a younger student, high school student, college student, some young person that's looking to succeed, young woman that's looking to succeed in sports. What is your 30 to 60-second message to her as she tries to navigate her path?
Well, I always say that there isn't a straight path. And so don't be discouraged by, you know, I know so many people now who leave school and say, oh, my dream job is X. And if you don't get X right away, whether it's to work at the NBA or NFL or anywhere else in sports. And if you don't get that right away, you become discouraged. And the truth is, you have to cast a really wide net. You have to be patient with developing your skills and developing your experiences and developing your network. And if you're truly committed to it, the opportunities, I think, are going to be there. But you have to be patient. Be patient with the process. Don't be patient with yourself. Demand a lot of yourself to build those skills. But don't be afraid to work in government. Don't be afraid to work in a nonprofit organization. That my path was not all about sports. I worked in government. I worked in nonprofits. Those experiences really helped me develop the skills and create the opportunities that I've been fortunate enough to have. So there isn't any one specific path. So cast a wide net, be patient, drive, build your skills, build your experiences, and try to connect with people along the way. You know, we talk about this all the time too, that like, you can't be it if you don't see it. Well, see it. It's out there. Look for those opportunities and you'll find your path.
You're always so amazing, Kathy. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Great to be with you. Thank you so much.
Take care. Hey, everybody. We're continuing our work here in New York City. We are in the Big Apple this week, and we are celebrating with the NBA draft. And it was important for me to connect with one of our homeboys that has a history with the NBA. All those years, Brother Chris has been a part of the NBA fabric as a journalist, as a broadcaster, as a senior analyst now. And he does a phenomenal job. Y'all know him from Fox Sports. Here he is, everybody, Mr. Chris Broussard. What's up, Chris?
I'm great, man. How are you, Dr. Bryant?
Everything is fantastic, man. We are here because the NBA draft is happening. We are excited about the new wave of players. But one of the things that we appreciate, Chris, and you've had such a long journey, 25 years now, working with athletes in general, but working with players, and you've seen how the NBA has always been proactive about how they deal with social justice issues and things that come up in the culture. Talk a little bit about how the players have evolved, especially in this past year, and how we can encourage this wave of draftees to continue to carry that mantle.
Well, the players have obviously been incredibly outspoken about social justice. That's the NBA, the WNBA, the NFL's gotten better. Major League Baseball, throughout the various leagues have spoken out. But the NBA players have certainly stood out. And that's been really for almost the past decade. You know, we went through a time in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s where there wasn't, there weren't a lot of players being outspoken on various issues. And I have to credit LeBron James because I think he kind of got the ball rolling in the NBA. You remember after the Trayvon Martin situation where he had his Miami Heat teammates, he and his teammates posted that picture on social media in their hoodies like Trayvon. And then from there, LeBron and other players began to speak out more. They wore the I Can't Breathe t-shirts. Obviously, throughout the bubble, that carried into the bubble during the pandemic, where Black Lives Matter was very prominent, from everything from the national anthem to what was on the court. But one of the most important developments, and I'll have to say this, and let me throw in the Milwaukee Bucks and them boycotting the one game, that was powerful as well. But this carried over into the hiring practices of the NBA this past offseason, where 7 of the 8 head coaches who were hired for new positions were African American. That brings the total in the league up to 13 out of the 30 head coaches are African American. There doesn't need to be a quota, but somewhere in between our 13% of the population and 75% of the NBA players, there's a happy medium where, there should be that number of African American coaches. And really what you want is a landscape where you know that your race is not being held against you. Right. And I think we certainly saw that this year with the NBA. So it's in a lot of ways it's a copycat league. And so you saw Tyronn Lue, former player, did a great job with the Los Angeles Clippers, got them to the conference finals for the first time in their history. Monty Williams, former player, gets the Phoenix Suns within 2 wins of an NBA championship. And then, of course, Doc Rivers in Philadelphia. And so you saw, and Nate McMillan in Atlanta, former player who got the Atlanta Hawks to deep into the playoffs. So that success for the black coaches, a lot of teams want to copy that success. They looked for former players who were African American, and the NBA did a good job. The next step for the NBA is to bring that diversity and that openness and inclusivity into the front offices. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, only 5 of the 30 teams have African Americans that run their basketball operations departments. And so that's where, where you don't see the front office people as much. They're not out in the open as much. It's not as easy to count the percentage of players or the percentage of coaches who are African American or people of color. So you don't have the diversity in the front offices that you should have. That's the next step. But the NBA certainly did a good job this offseason in bringing these social justice charges into the hiring practices, and that's critical.
As you look at the landscape of athletes in general, and I'm thinking more specifically about young athletes who come from difficult backgrounds, who come from challenging scenarios, what has been the trigger that has gotten athletes motivated outside of just being a part of these movements? You mentioned the Trayvon Martin situation, obviously last year with George Floyd. Outside of that, are athletes, becoming more aware of the power of their platform and how their voices matter? Because we saw last year with voting, we saw last year with, a lot of things. We saw even with the late Kobe Bryant, how, with his continuing rising star, he was an influence with the WNBA and with gender equality. Are younger athletes becoming more aware of their position and their power? And what do you think has contributed to some of that?
Well, I think, first of all, what sparked it, and I would say yes, and I'll get to that in a moment, but what sparked it, I mentioned LeBron James and the current NBA players and stars who've pushed this issue. So that's number one. But also, the racism and injustice has been more overt recently. There were points in the 80s, obviously, the racism was still there, but it may not have been quite as overt. You go back to when athletes were most outspoken before this generation, and it was the 1960s, because the racism was so in your face. And then it kind of went underground, if you will. It was a little more covert, and so you didn't see it as much in your face as an athlete, as much. You saw it here and there, but that's why I think one reason athletes were quiet. And then that's when the NBA the big money was coming about too. Initially, that's like the first, the big money was coming for one of the first times. And I think athletes didn't want to risk that opportunity with the money or even with the endorsement deals. You began to see basketball players representing products, and I don't think they wanted to risk losing that. So all of that silenced the athletes to some degree in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And then now recently, because we've seen this injustice so much in our faces, I salute the athletes. They've just been like, look, I can't stay quiet. There's a microphone in my face every day. People are asking me questions. I do have a platform. I need to say something about this. And I think with the younger athletes who are coming in now, they recognize branding because of so many of them already have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers on social media, even in high school. And so they're building their brand. They've been told and taught about the importance of building your brand, and they recognize my brand, my platform, Instagram, Twitter, gives me a voice. And again, as they see the injustices continue, as they see the current NBA players, guys they grew up watching, speak out about these issues, they understand I can use my platform or my brand to address these very important and crucial issues in the African American community and in the country as a whole. So I think that's a big part of it as well. And one thing I've realized is that it is important to use your platform as an African American. And we have to understand, and I understand from my own experiences and from my studies of history, that, look, we have a different history than any other group of people in this country. We have a different current situation than any other group of people in this country. So we have to do things differently than other groups of people in this country. So it's not an excuse to say a white American brother or sister who's a great athlete or who's a well-known broadcaster or just has a national platform for whatever reason, entertainment, whatever it may be. It's not enough to say, well, they don't speak out about various issues. They don't have this responsibility. Their people aren't looking at them to speak out about these issues. They're in a whole different situation than we are as African Americans. And we all know it. They've got a whole different history than we have as African Americans, and we all know it. So don't look at them as your model. Look at our people. And that's what I did. And my heroes, the Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, so many other people, Dr. Martin Luther King, all the way up to him. These are individuals who could have, they got platforms. When I go back to Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth and so on and so forth, they were African Americans who were free during the period of slavery. And instead of just enjoying their freedom, and which they hopefully did to some degree, but instead of just enjoying their freedom and trying to live like the rest of free America, they went back and tried to help all African Americans get freedom and obviously improve the quality of life. And that is the pattern I want to follow. I've been blessed. I have a wonderful job. I've been able to make money and provide for my family and have a very nice lifestyle. And that's great. I should enjoy that. But I also want to use the many opportunities, the voice, the platform that God has given me to help the masses of African American people improve their quality of life. And so when I can lend my voice to speak out on an issue of justice, of injustice, of racism, of even things we as African Americans need to do within our own communities, I want to use this platform for those things, to advance those causes. And we all, probably many people's favorite athlete is Muhammad Ali. And it wasn't just because he was so great in the boxing ring, obviously he was, but it was because he did exactly what I'm talking about. He used his platform to speak out on behalf of the voiceless, on behalf of the African Americans that mainstream America wasn't thinking about, didn't want to hear about, and really wasn't even in some ways fully aware of their plight. And so I think that's what those African Americans, not just athletes, but including athletes, those of us as African Americans who have this platform, this voice, should use it in whatever way we feel led to help improve the quality of life for our people.
Chris Broussard, ladies and gentlemen, changing the game for good. How can we follow you, Chris? How can we follow the King Movement?
You can follow the King Movement at kingmovement.com. That's our website. If you're interested in learning more about the movement beyond what's on the website, you can email us at king@kingmovement.com. Of course, we're on social media, Twitter and Instagram at kingmovement.com or thekingmovement.com. As far as myself, I speak at churches, schools, colleges, corporations throughout the country at various events. You can book me to speak if you're interested at Chris Broussard Speaks. That's chrisbroussardspeaks.com. And I would be glad to come and fellowship with you.
Chris Broussard, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, brother.
Yep.
Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Joseph Bryant. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the National Sports Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. And as you know, we have been building our conversation around sports and social justice. We have enjoyed being able to experience the NBA draft. We have enjoyed conversations in the city of New York, the Big Apple, with some folks in Brooklyn, with some people excited about the draft being in town, but more than that, being the mecca of basketball and having all of the history of basketball in New York City and being able to engage in social activity the way New York does. It is an appropriate place and backdrop for this conversation as we continue with an amazing gift gift to the sport, the president of social responsibility and player programs at the NBA, an amazing supporter of the Rainbow Push platform, Rainbow Push Sports, our banquets, our panels, our workshops, all the things that we've done around player engagement and engaging the sports world. Kathy Behrens has been right there with us, a great partner and a great advocate. Welcome to our program this morning. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. It's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to partner with Rainbow Push and the Reverend Jackson. We are grateful for our truly decades-long relationship.
Yes.
and the work that we've been able to do together. So thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
You know, over the years, a lot of times Reverend Jackson, you know, he loves basketball, so he attends basketball games. He loves going to playoff games, all-star games, whatever, opportunities he has on his calendar to be able to attend. But a lot of times people don't realize that his objective is not just to enjoy the sport, but to talk to the players, to encourage athletes and those involved in the athletic world to use their platform for the greater good. Talk a little bit about how you and your role and the NBA has embraced that assignment in a very meaningful way.
Well, let me just say too, just about the Reverend Jackson as it relates to that. Yes, he's a big fan, but you're absolutely right. Not only does he find the time to connect with our younger players, but stays connected to our legends as well, and helps them understand the opportunity that they have being part of the league. And frankly, he also does that for us at the league office and with our teams, and just in terms of looking for opportunities to understand the issues on a deeper level, and the right ways to address them. He's a fan, but he's also someone who holds us accountable, and that's a good partner, and that's something that we appreciate. And so for us at the league, I've been at the league office for more than 20 years, and so these aren't new issues that we have dealt with. These are also issues that I think our players throughout our history, and this is a big year for us. We're celebrating our 75th anniversary. But I think our players have always tried to find ways to take what happens on the court, which is ultimately basketball is a meritocracy. And if you got game, you could play, David Stern used to always say. But we know that for a long time in our history, our Black players were not treated the same way. And so as we tried to think about ways that we could make sure we were using our platform for good, I'll take another David Stern quote and share it with you, which was always, shame on us if we don't do everything we can with the platform that we have. And so as it relates to our community work, as it relates to our social justice work, we have always looked for ways to make sure that our players understood the issues, and were able to speak out, engage, have impact where they wanted to and how they wanted to. And obviously we're a global game, and so sometimes that includes work that we have done globally as well. And so it's really just about making sure that we're paying attention, that we're focused, that we're engaged, and that we have good partners. Ultimately, we're still a basketball league. So what we need are partners to help us. And that's obviously where Rainbow Push comes in, where the Reverend Jackson comes in, and so many other great partners that we've been fortunate enough to work with. So I think it's a tradition, a through line of the history of the NBA as players really engaging on this important social impact work.
The past couple of years have been very unique for our entire world, needless to say, and here we are even now still wrestling, adjusting, trying to get our footing correct on how to handle where we are and how we go forward. But if I look back at the past year and a half, the NBA has again stepped up in so many ways and done so many amazing things. The way you handled the sensitive issues around the killing of George Floyd, a lot of the voices that you allowed to ring so true from the bubble. How much of that was your office being proactive as you saw these things evolve, and how much of it was the response to the way the athletes desired to use their platform? Because it seemed, from an outsider looking in, it seemed like it was just a real good marriage of the two, where you both saw eye to eye, the players and the office saw eye to eye on how to go forward and do something during this critical moment.
Yeah, I think, I guess I would just say it doesn't happen in isolation. And so the
Mhm.
George Floyd murder was certainly a moment that we all, not just as our league, but frankly the world,
Mhm.
stopped for a second and looked at race issues in a different way. But I think the benefit for us was that that wasn't the first time we had done it. We'd
Mhm.
already been working on these issues and engaged, as I said, both with partners, but with our players, and understanding that we had this platform, and understanding that this was a time to encourage people to engage in frankly, in a more meaningful level,
Mhm.
and to look at the issues systemically, to look at the issues through a couple of different lenses. And so one of them is we've always been very focused on sort of social impact and
Mhm.
community partnerships. But one thing we really needed to focus on in the last year and a half was philanthropy. How could we deepen our philanthropy? How could we focus in very intentionally on economic opportunity and equity, especially for Black community? And so we started the NBA Foundation with a very, very intentional focus on improving that economic and career experience for Black young people, especially.
Mhm.
And then, as we dealt with the unfortunate Jacob Blake shooting
Mhm.
in Kenosha,
Right.
another reminder that there were other things that we also had to focus on. So we have our social impact programming and partnerships. We have our philanthropy. Then we created something called the National Basketball Social Justice Coalition. And that was really, again, very intentional with our players, with our coaches, with our team owners, our team governors to deal with the issues at a government level, at a legislative level,
Mhm.
whether it's the federal level or the state level or the local level. We've got to make changes in how some of these laws are applied. And so the inequities that are in our system have to be changed.
Right.
So the Social Justice Coalition gave us one more sort of avenue to focus on. And I would just say, as it relates to the bubble and some of the other work that we've done, it's all about communication and respect, and
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
respect that the role that our players have in this area. Our players respect the role and influence that our team governors have and that the league has. And so that mutual respect, that communication, that willingness to partner on all of these programs doesn't mean that's the only way we do it, or that a
Right.
player has to do all of their work through
Sure.
the league office. That's not how it works. We want to amplify and elevate all the good things that our players are doing, all the important things that our players are doing, make sure that their voices are heard, make sure that their passion is understood,
Mhm.
and then just figure out how we can work together to really, frankly, affect meaningful, substantive, systemic change, because
Mhm.
that's what
Mhm.
is required.
Right, right. Being in New York for the draft and the excitement of the draft, obviously the league has had a wonderful season again. Congrats to the Milwaukee Bucks, and it's been a wonderful journey. You all have navigated all the challenges, and now another wave of athletes are coming. Another group of young people are going to have their lives, forever changed. How does the league embrace the incoming class, so to speak? How does the league view its role in speaking into those young people and their families as they make the transition into the league? How do you handle preparing them for life beyond the court, so to speak, and what it means for them to carry that banner of being an NBA athlete?
It's hugely important, and you said a couple of things that I think I really want to just underscore. One is that it's not just a transition that the player himself is going through, but that his family is
Mhm.
going through. So the most important part for us is that we make sure that the draft is not the first time that players and their families are learning about some of these issues,
Mm.
or hearing about these issues.
Mhm.
So we have programs where we are trying to engage. We benefit from the fact that you kind of know right now what the class of 2024,
Mhm.
3 years out, could look like. There's always going to be some people who either fall or rise, but
Mhm.
you really do have a sense of who some of those best players are. So we engage with these best players at an early age through our junior NBA program, through our junior NBA global championship, through our partnership with USA Basketball. It's not just about developing their on-court skills, but really understanding and developing the off-court life skills as well.
Mhm.
and helping family members navigate that path. So that's first thing, is we make sure it's not just like at the draft, here you go, you're dropped into this world. You're really kind of understanding. And I
Right.
will just say too, we have a great partnership with the Players Association, which does great work as well. So there are lots of touch points that where players are really understanding these issues and learning how to navigate them. The other thing I think that we do really well and very intentionally is to use our former players or our current players to you don't know what it's like until you've walked in those shoes. And so, we bring in not only success stories, but frankly, we bring in stories of players who have struggled and how they have struggled, and talk about the lessons they have learned and the things they would do, not just differently, but how they would reach out for some assistance, and that covers a pretty wide swath. How do you think about your post-career, even before you started playing? That's important to us. How do you think about financial management? How do you think about relationship management? How do you think about these social issues, and how you want to make an impact and what you want to be known for? All are really, really important. And then just health, and that means physical and mental health as well. And we, again, very intentionally talk about those issues because it's incredibly important that people know they've got support systems that are available. Again, whether it's the league office, the Players Association, what's available at your team. We really want to make sure that we're taking care of the whole person, not just who that person is as a basketball player, but who they are as a son, who they are as a brother, in some cases, who they are as a dad. And so making sure that they know that they're coming into a family. And that's where one of the things we love is that so many of our former players are still involved in different aspects of the league, not only as team governors. Michael Jordan, obviously, the greatest player of all time, as a team owner, understands everything about the game and the business of basketball and really works to impart that. But so many other former players who have roles as coaches, as general managers, as league executives, as team executives. So it just, when you're around the NBA, what you see are people who've been around it for decades. And so there's nothing we haven't seen. There's nothing that is going to be new in terms of how we can help someone who's dealing with something, or just to take advantage of the opportunity in a really positive and constructive way.
The NBA does so many things well. And so I just applaud you and thank you for sharing all of the different nuances that go into how you prepare players for the future, how you handle and manage and encourage and include players, from the past. And some people don't even realize that legends is the name that is given to the retired players for the NBA. And so we give a shout out to Scott Rochelle and that organization and the work that they do, and Michelle Roberts and the players, again, you have so many moving parts that do so much great work. And then you're so,
and we need all of those moving parts. It's not one, you can't just say, oh, the league office will do that. We all have to work collectively and together.
And I think that's, a part of the celebration for me of anything the NBA does. I can always see generations. I always see, the incoming, the former, and everyone in between. The league office is always actively involved, and the commissioner is so hands-on. And then we have in this moment, this wonderful award that has been introduced. And, just talk a little bit about the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Social Justice Award and how that came to be. And, we're really excited about, what that means culturally, what that means to society, what that means as a specific way to highlight the work of these wonderful athletes. Talk a little bit about how you've come to this moment, and let's just celebrate your inaugural year of the award.
Yeah, it was a great thing to add this year. We just felt that with all of the great work that our players were doing on the social justice space, that we wanted to figure out a way to recognize that. And what better way to do that than to, at the same time, honor someone like Kareem, who we've talked about the through line of our history. You can't think about it, talk about it, understand it without recognizing the role of so many former players. But Kareem to us really kind of stood out. And because we continue to work so closely with him, We knew how passionately he still felt today, as he did decades ago when he was involved in the civil rights movement. So we felt like it was a way to both honor our past and the leadership of Kareem and the people of his generation, but at the same time elevate again the voices of this new generation of players. And one of the things we loved about the group that was honored, ultimately Carmelo Anthony was the winner of the inaugural Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Social Justice Champion. But there were other players, Juan Toscano Anderson, not someone who's, considered an all-star. I think he's got a great future. But it's the combination of all-stars, Drew Holiday, now an NBA champion. And so you have these stories of guys who, in some ways, under the radar screen, in some ways they're better known, they use their social media platform, but all of them really very focused on how they could use their platform in their local community, making an impact. And so that balance of recognizing a handful of players, current guys, but connecting it to our history, it just seemed to us to be a perfect kind of metaphor for what we try to do in this space, which is, honor and respect our history, but know that we've got to create change and that we have to be out on the front lines of making that change happen. It's not just gonna, we saw Kareem with, programs that he has been a part of for decades and work that he did with Dr. Martin Luther King. You cannot do this work and not understand the path that we've been on. So that's really what we tried to do with the award, and thrilled about it, thrilled for Carmelo. I thought he was incredibly deserving. He is someone who has helped us. I think back, years ago when Carmelo was playing with USA Basketball, and he and LeBron and Dwayne Wade spoke at the ESPY Awards about the need for athletes to be more involved in these issues. And we have worked with Carmelo for years on our police and community relations programs. We've worked with him for years on elevating Black business owners. We've worked with him on, programs in his hometown of Baltimore. Wherever he has been, he's really deserving of this award. So thrilled for him, and already, frankly, looking forward to next year and continuing to elevate the voices of our players.
Congratulations to you for having this type of passionate drive to ensure that your organization, your platform, your league does work like this. And we thank you for allowing us to be a part of it, allowing us to engage with you. And we want to take this moment now to celebrate with you, Mr. Carmelo Anthony, the first award winner, the first champion, the first one to receive the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Social Justice Award. Kathy, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a real honor. We're thrilled for Carmelo and thrilled that he's gotten recognized, and that we've got this award to recognize future players and to, recognize Kareem, who's a true champion as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Carmelo, I just want to say congratulations, man. You won the very first NBA Social Justice Champion Award. And this should not be a surprise to anybody.
This is an honor, and I say that, I don't say that lightly, because for this to be the first award in this category, for me to just be sitting here with you and you giving me this award, and I'm receiving this award from you, it's just a testament of what everybody is doing, what our community is doing, and the amount of people that's really paying attention and stepping up, to the forefront and delivering those messages and talking that talk and believing what they believe in, and just taking care of the actual community and the people that actually matters. And for me to just be that first guy to just receive that award by you, Kat, I'm lost for words with that right now.
Sports and social justice. Thank you, NBA. Thank you, Adam Silver. Thank you to the committee for creating this powerful award. Thank you for setting an example, Kareem. Thank you for showing us, not only as a player, but in your post-career, what it means to leverage the platform you have and the attention that people have on you as an athlete to be a true advocate. We appreciate you. Reverend Jackson appreciates you for all of your work. Reverend Jackson spent years working with athletes. He spent years working with Jackie Robinson and family, Kurt Flood and family. He spent years doing this type of work, encouraging athletes to use their platform. And today we have the Dwayne Wades and the LeBron James and the Social Justice Award winner Carmelo Anthony using their platforms for the greater good. And now we see a whole group of young athletes coming to the league as new draftees. They'll have a chance to impact a city, a team, and a community for the greater good. That's what changing the game for good is all about.
When I think of Rainbow Push, I think of two words: social justice.
Education advocacy.
Political empowerment.
Freedom and equality.
Corporate partnership.
Stop the violence. Save the children.
Don't get in. Shut it down. If we don't get in, shut it down.
Political change.
Inclusion, evolution, progress, justice.
Jesse Jackson.
Keep hope. Keep hope alive. Alive. Keep hope. Keep hope alive. Alive.
We want to be bridges to end these cultural gaps.
Going forward. By hope. Not backwards. By fear.